put this one up on the stage here. Where are we? Up on the stage. I love that. Okay, so the developments in technology have given us new ways to conveniently explore and refine training methods. What modern technologies have you personally found to be of great benefit? Victoria, would you like to jump in on this?
Yeah, I'll give some very basic forms of technology. One is an app I use where you can record your own affirmations in your voice, and you can do up to 3 in this app for free. It's called Think Up, like think in the direction up. And then it'll play it in a loop with some music in the background. So you could just have your headphones on during the day. And, you know, if you're listening to it all day, whether you just do one affirmation or if you do 3 different ones or 2, I like that because, you know, besides saying it yourself or thinking it, you can have it automatically feeding into your subconscious while you're working on something else. I also like the availability with music, like hertz frequencies and binaural beats. So, like at a very basic level, auditory input is impressions for our astral body. So, you know, but it kind of influences it. So, based on the vibration of the music you're listening to, that can tune your innermost self into different states of frequency. I mean, for example, if you're religious or not, but if you listen to religious music, you know, if you're Christian and at church and listening to beautiful hymns, or if you're Buddhist and you're in a monastery and listening to people chanting, you know, that also has a powerful effect. Other technology, I know there's a living crystal from that 60 Skills and another magician did. Maybe he'll cover that. And also just the phone and the computers at the basic level. You know, if we were pre-internet and we found Franz Bardon in a library or a magical bookstore, we'd be doing it by ourselves at home, you know, maybe sharing it with a friend, but because we have the internet and phones where we can call people, we can have this YouTube live stream right now. I feel like that is an advancement in magical as well. Magical, whether it's development for yourself, magical community, being exposed to new things to learn, different ideas and perspectives and ways of seeing things too.
This is something I got from Bob. Sorry to interrupt. It's a new piece of technology. I was initially skeptical, but I got some of them anyway. The living crystal device.
Yes,
it's rather nice. It's quite good. What I do with it, I'll just turn it on briefly. It's got a little pencil in there. Is what I do with it is I use traditional stuff. So say for example, I want to bring a genii or an angel, drawing an angel to a shoe stone. So I'll have my quartz sphere, and I'll very carefully, because I don't know if it can take the weight if I just mash it down, I'll put that on top of the living crystal device. So I'm using traditional magical technology, and I'm applying this modern innovation, and I'm finding that there's an improvement in ease of contact. In other words, if I do the drawing of an angel to a shoe stone, generally, yes, good. If I put the shoe stone on top of the living crystal device, better. And that's a clear technological advancement, which I can only, I mean, you know, I can't say it's the best thing in sliced bread, even though I think it is, because obviously people have to draw their own opinions on these things. But that's what I've found a use for, and I'm very pleased that I encountered it, and I'm very pleased about that. Yeah. So there you go. Yes. It was really difficult to get because of import laws and all sorts of nonsense. It was really difficult to get it into the UK, and so I once again thank you, Bob, for the 20% discount because it came to the UK, and I hope that you can find a way to be able to ship it here, because obviously you can't do that for everyone. You've got to earn a crust. So
Yeah,
You
the
know,
difficulty we're running into these days is, for those of you involved with logistics, is the international shipping rates have gone bonkers
yeah,
and they're
yeah.
completely unpredictable now. So if we mail it on one day, it may be somewhat reasonable. If we mail it on the wrong day,
Mm.
not so much. And so we're looking at some options for fixing that. But
I hope you do, mate, because it's a good piece of gear.
I'm glad people like it. It's interesting. It's about 80-20. 80% of the people out there who are into this kind of stuff really love it. And the other 20% are like, why did you bother sending this to me? So I don't know what to say. But yeah,
I have found it to be an extension and increase on traditional items like a magic mirror or a shoe stone. And the reason for that is because it produces, and well, when you work with a shoe stone or a sphere, you load the sphere
right.
prior to bringing through the genii you wish to interact with. The living crystal device seems to generate a degree of energy automatically, so it gets you started.
Yeah,
That's what makes it interesting and different to traditional equipment.
It's curious. We're still not exactly sure why. I've written about this in the Iranian spirit that kind of kick-started this whole process, on the blog, and I've talked about it on other videos, but it seems to generate more of something that people use. Why? I really don't know. It seems to be fairly programmable in that whatever energy you program it with, it will start making more of it. And again, since it's not technically a living, breathing organism, I'm not sure how that works, but somehow it does. And there's that. There's the stuff that obviously Victoria's talked about in terms of binaural beats and just timing devices and all of that other kind of thing. I know some people have gotten really good results from using light and sound machines, teaching themselves how to generate very specific brainwave patterns upon command. I've had a few people tell me that's very useful. But in terms of tech, I'd say that's the main stuff. Being careful that electromagnetic radiation writ large seems to be counterproductive on some level. So, the 4G, 5G stuff being underneath a electrical line where you practice doesn't tend to be very helpful either. But those are really the only observations that I have.
There's many, many toys and many, many ways to play. And I just want to comment quickly on binaural beats because I used them for many years and had some wonderful successes with them. The problem is, though, is that they can become a crutch, and ideally, my understanding is, and my own personal preferences, is that I want to be able to self-generate these experiences. Without the need for the I don't want to have to carry around a bag full of fingers pointing at the moon that I have to ride every time I want to go to that place. I want to be able to self-generate. And so I found that, once I shifted on from binaural beats, it gave me the flavors, and I had to learn how to recall those flavors myself. And that was when the value was there. And the other one is that putting little magnets in your ears has a disruptive effect as well. And so, there's plenty of research to show, like the safe distance to hold the phone away from the ear and these types of things. But you can get headphones that are essentially the sound generation or the sound drivers are down here, and it's a hollow tube that comes up your head. So you don't have these little active magnets essentially creating extra noise in the signal, so to speak. And I really enjoy hearing about this living crystal device because it sounds like you can generate this thing that you can sort of take advantage of, and then you'll turn it off, and then you will go, okay, well, the thing can take me up about here, or can increase this or do this, then it's like, okay, well, how can I use that to help me get up there myself? and so you have a steady metric, because I'm presuming it doesn't have like a power dial.
What I sometimes do is, if I'm going to generate some electromagnetic fluid, I'll turn on the device and put the sphere of electromagnetic fluid into its area of effect. And then when I finished generating the fluid, I mean, sometimes I do it without, because I forget to use it. But when I do it, there's an improvement. And then I'll turn off the field to reify the fluid. I probably wouldn't need to turn off the field, but it just feels kind of, I'm a bit of a fetishist when it comes to ceremonial. I have been all my life. I do ritual magic, so there's always got to be a process. So yes. I turn it off, then I reify the fluid. But I would say that I get fewer difficult days with, you have off days with everything. Using this device reduces the intensity of off days, is what I would say.
Victoria, please.
I've even used it for ambient energy while I'm working. I'll have it sitting on my computer and just kind of ambient energy that just kind of there. Especially if it's an intense work day, it would just kind of help me stay kind of focused and tuned in more. So I like what you mentioned, Phil, about not having it be a crutch, but it can also be like a boost and an aid, So.
Yeah, and there's many things to take advantage of, and obviously you can go searching, and there's lots of purported and claimed benefits or things that we can interact with. Now, a while ago, I haven't publicly shared it, but somebody has come up with a type of a wheel that is an indicator of your psychic abilities or something like that. Well, I mean, if this has got some legitimacy to it, then I would sit down with it and go through familiar practices and see how this thing is effective. So, if there is tech out there that can be used as like a feedback monitor for success, and we have things like, galvanic skin response, we have EEGs and EKGs and things where we can essentially start to, create more autonomic functions, take over autonomic functions in the body, the breath being generally the first one. But then we can also start managing our own internal systems. Caveats of always, taking care when we start playing with things. And obviously Mr. Bardon goes into great length somewhat to talk, be mindful of how you interact with the brain and the heart, for example. So, these are all important considerations, but there are certainly many ways to explore how our practices can affect the physical. Please.
Well, one of the things that is an obvious use of technology, but perhaps is considered by some to be controversial, is you were talking about galvanic skin response. Well, of course, that's the Dianetics thing. The what are they called? All those famous film stars are part of the organization.
Scientologists. Yeah.
That's the ones. So they use galvanic skin response as part of their methodology, initially at least, as a purpose of psychological unfoldment and addressing issues. Before, obviously, I'm not a Scientologist, so I don't know what else they do with it. But you can clearly see they're using technology there, basic lie detector technology, the galvanic skin response, to help to identify things that perhaps the person may not be fully aware of as they progress within that organization. I know the image of that organization is mixed. I'm afraid I'm entirely ignorant of what goes on in it further along, but I do note that technological innovation that they employ.
Yeah, and so this is the thing is that there's groups out there that are going, hey, look, this is worth paying attention to, even if it's just with some understanding as to the why, but when it's a case of like driving it from the mental body to create physical effects in the world, when instrumentation is able to detect greater and greater levels of subtlety and nuance, and that can be taken advantage of to help us develop ourselves so that we develop a firmer conviction in what we're doing, because we can see that there's an effect from our cause. And you know, these are valuable things. And so when you've got an amplifier like, say, the living crystal device that's able to basically, like, it's not training wheels, that's not really the right way of doing it, but what it does is it gives you a bit more, maybe a bit more juice. Now I haven't got one, so I can't claim from personal experience, but that's what I'm picking up from the panel here, is that it's like, okay, you know, it's like, here's a boost, like you said. And
it's like an activation. If you say that a mirror or a shoe stone, traditional devices, are good, they can have accumulator put in them, and that in itself tells you what they do. You load them with energy. Whereas this living crystal device, you turn it on, you get a trickle of energy before you load. And that's interesting. I'm not necessarily earth-shattering, but it's certainly interesting and certainly worth noticing and investigating, I would say. And as I say, I've been using it in interaction with the more traditional devices, and it's been very interesting indeed. And I'm sure that, you know, that, like you say, binaural beats, the galvanic skin response, the Scientologists do. There are, I think there's a whole sort of like scene of unexplored material that over time is going to gradually. I was talking to James on Messenger about virtual reality and you know, and the AR, I forget what that abbreviation. Augmented reality. Well, isn't that putting consciousness into Yesod in a way? If you look at it from the Kircher tree, you know, the physical body is an akasha. You're fighting a dragon with your VR helmet on, so you're in the Yesodic astral treasure house of images world in your consciousness. So isn't, you know, so that you could even in very simplistic terms look at it and see how it's moving us almost involuntarily back up the tree, not necessarily for good sometimes. But anyway, I digress.
Wonderful. That's really interesting. Victoria, please.
To Philip mentioning augmented reality, I've had like a parallel life fantasy for years, and I don't know where it originated from, about virtual reality becoming so developed that, and developing some kind of app or program that is actually useful for people's inner work, spiritual development, psychological development, whether it is realities for path working with gods or with the Kabbalah tree of life, or you know, different psychological work, or it can even be great for helping people with like black mirror work. So say someone has anger issues and you put them in these stimulated realities where they can work through these kind of issues in a safe space to then transform it as well. I mean, we then again are using technology as a crutch rather than self-generating those things, but I still feel like it can be potent, at least for the mass public, to have this kind of method if technology gets to that point in our time, and if someone actually develops these kind of apps that target this kind of output.
Yeah,
and these are really fun topics to spin. Bob, go for
it. I would say that tech of any kind, not necessarily modern, seems to fall into one of two categories. It either helps you tune into something, a sigil, a certain kind of stone, you know, things of this nature, binaural beats, okay? And then you've got stuff that generates more energy to work with. You know, obviously Living Crystal, and thank you for the praise for that, everybody, does that to some degree. Things like puja or fire ceremony generates a lot of ambient astral energy that can be harnessed. Things like incense, because you're converting a physical substance into a gas, you're burning it. That liberates a lot of subtle energy that can be harnessed as well when you know how. In terms of things that are externally generating energy, you know, there's things that we can do that internally generate energy: pranayama, holding posture, walking techniques, you know, the list goes on. So if you're going to look at tech aiding stuff, I've broadly seen it fall into those two categories of either it helps you tune into something or it generates more of something. You know, and if you look at things that way, you might find some answers you can appreciate. So for what it's worth.
Yeah, wonderful. A great way to sort of, you know, to put them into perspective there too, because, you know, there's lots and lots and lots of gadgets and gimmicks and things that are available. And I think that one thing I've really enjoyed about this particular community is that people like to know the why and the how. And so there's a lot of very intelligent people who are open to exploring these things. And when they say, wow, this generates some kind of experience, and I think I can explain it somewhat. And that's very helpful because we also know that there's a lot of people out there just wanting to make a buck too. And, you know, if you're a good salesman, you can spin anything to look kind of good. Okay.